Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I have a craft fair make, a gift giving make. We are going to do some mixed media decoupage. We're going to use our mixed media art journaling techniques, but we're going to work on metal buckets. You could use this on any substrate. Here's what I've used. These 3 buckets with this tray I picked up at Dollarama in Canada. Check your dollar store for something similar. Now, you're going to want to give this a coat of gesso. That has worked. I've actually used this Kills 2 on these buckets. I have a whole bunch of these buckets and I did a mass application of the primer. You want to prime it so that the paint and whatever you're going to do sticks and adheres better. So let's look at the 3 that I'm going to do. This one uses a napkin, and then we use some modeling paste to make some ephemera on it. This one, we are going to achieve this bronze patina look. You won't know what we're going to use for that. And this one uses a napkin and a colored coffee filter. I promised you 3 different ways. So let's work on bucket number 1. Again, it's primed and you want to give it a coat of white. Now I'm using this napkin. It's called Dancing Snowmen. And it fits perfectly around the bucket. We have this line of snowmen that I can pretty much decoupage the napkin as is straight onto the bucket. I just looked out, it fit, but you can try your napkins on there. One of the other ones, we will show a different way of using a napkin if it doesn't fit perfectly. I've wrapped it around that one snowman I'm going to actually cut off, but I'm just using my Tim Holtz guillotine cutter. This is kind of a mini one. I love it. It fits so perfectly on my desk. It's a handy tool to have. I've left the plies on to cut. It's just easier than using scissors, and I want to maintain a straight line here. So there are my snowmen, and I have one excess one, so I'm just going to cut him off. He's perfect for an ATC or to put on at the front of a mini composition book as a stocking stuffer. He'll be used. So before I decoupage this on, because I'm keeping this white, I want to paint the inside of my bucket. Now you'll notice that I've primed it with the gesso or the Kills 2, and I am just applying 2 coats of the pink paint. This matches the snowman. You could have left this just the metal. You could have painted it whatever color you want. I find that using a makeup sponge works better, and you're going to need at least 2 or 3 coats. Then I'm using the makeup sponge to get around that rim, and you can see why I wanted to do this beforehand, because you can see I got some smudges on there, and if I had decoupaged the napkin first, I would have gotten that on there, and then I would have a mess to clean up. So you can paint the centers if you know what color that's going to work. So here I'm just using a bit of gesso to knock back where I got that smudge. And between brush and a makeup sponge, I am painting the inside. I just like that finished look. But again, if you want to keep it just the metal look, that's perfectly fine. You do you. Now you could heat it up, but it's metal, so it does heat up. I've got a bag of quinoa actually underneath there, so my bucket doesn't roll away. Now, before I decoupage, I'm removing the 2 excess plies. Now, my napkins come from NINNYSNAPKINS.com. There's a link in the description box. All of them have 2 plies, so you're going to want to make sure you remove both of them. Now I've got the perfect size, checking the fitting. It wraps around perfectly, and I'm ready to glue it on. Now I'm going to use Liquitex Fluid Matte Medium. That's my preferred, but you can use Mod Podge if that's what you have. I don't like the smell of Mod Podge, and it doesn't, even the matte formula isn't as matte as I would like. So I prefer the Fluid Matte Medium from Liquitex. I'm putting a little bit on here, and then I'm going to line up my napkin right across the top. Now because the bottom is narrower, you're going to get a few wrinkles. You can manipulate those in the end, it doesn't show up or it adds some interesting texture, don't fret about it. You just want to make sure that the snowmen's faces are good. So I put a little bit. Now I'm just going to do little bit by little bit and work my way around the napkin, around the bucket, I mean. Just lightly press it in. Now remember, the napkin, when wet, gets a little bit more fragile. You don't want to rip or tear it. There's always a fix you can do, but why do more work if you can avoid it in the first place? Now, I would, after putting the gesso on, I would give it a coat of white paint to make sure that it's truly opaque. You want that white bright, especially with this napkin, because I don't plan on doing a whole lot of painting on that background. It's pretty much done. This is going to be decoupage and go. Very simple, although I do add some other interesting embellishments to give you the possibilities. You can mix and match some of the techniques that I'm showing with the 3 buckets on here. Just piecing it together. And then I have a little bit too much overlap here, so I'm just going to break that off and decoupage it done. Could not be simpler. Then I'm putting a coat of the fluid matte medium on top, being gentle so I don't rip the napkin. Now, this is pearl white stencil butter that I put through the stencil onto the excess plies of the napkin. You know, the stuff you want to throw away? Now, I have that in my stash because I did it on a previous project, but I did extra at the time because, well, it's winter and I knew I might be needing more of this. Now, this is completely dry because it's in my stash. I'm just using my liner brush with a little bit of water to water cut it out. And then I am going to decoupage that on. Now, the pearl white stencil butter is kind of iridescent, so it gives that look. And it looks like little snowflakes in the back. It's also adding texture. It's a little 3D, which I absolutely love. So I'm just going to work my way around here and figure out how many I need, where I'm going to place them. I had the idea, what would if I cut them in half? I could put them around the top of it. So you can use any stencil with straight up modeling paste if you don't have the stencil butter. This is iridescent and I wanted that quality. I wanted to add that to my bucket. Now these buckets are great to fill with trail mix, tea, coffee pods. You could put a gift card in it, put a little cellophane around it or tissue, and gift it as a hostess. They also make good craft fair makes. And when you buy them all together, I think it was $4 for the tray with the 3 of them. You can't beat that price point. So here I am just figuring out where I'm going to put them, how many I'm going to cut out, and then I'm going to glue them down, decoupage them down with the fluid matte medium, just like I did the napkin. Basically, this is napkin that I put modeling paste on. Just moving around, adding the embellished snowflakes. I decided not to put the half ones, just an individual choice. So I really like that pearl white stencil butter. So I'm grabbing some of that and I'm going to make snow for my snowmen to stand in across the bottom. Again, this is adding texture. It's the same sense, it's the same medium as the snowflakes that I just decoupaged on, and it's making it look a little bit more winterish. Now, you could do this, use this same napkin, same everything, and do this on canvas board, art journal page, 4x4 magnets. The possibilities are endless. What I'm showing you here are techniques that you can use no matter what substrate you're working on. So if you don't want to work on a metal can like I am, don't. Here I'm taking my stylus and I'm dotting with the pink color, just to bring the pink up a little bit. I also come back with the stylus and put a smaller dot of gold paint that just added a little bit more warmth to the bucket. When you're dotting with the stylus, remember the paint is fairly wet and takes time to dry. You can use the heat tool, but because this is a metal product, it heats up, so don't burn yourself. So let's move on to bucket number 2. And I'm going to use something that comes in my Amazon packages, brown wrapping paper. And I'm just going to rip it up, crumple it up, and then decoupage it down into little bits. This is going to give a lot of texture, a lot of interest to the bucket. I do want kind of a straight edge to go along the top and the bottom. So sometimes off to the side, I am cutting it, and I'm using my fluid matte medium to get down there, but I'm making sure that I do have lots of wrinkles and crinkles in here and overlap, because everything you put into this is going to show up once we do either a faux leather technique, which is where I was going with this. I ended up doing a faux bronze patina. Sometimes things just evolve as you go. So I'm just covering the bucket. Now you could say, Karen, was it necessary to prime this with the Kills or the gesso? Given where I went with this, doing the outside, it wasn't absolutely necessary because the matte medium would adhere. But when I primed them, I didn't know what I was going to do with them. And I prefer doing an all-out priming session where I get out the primer and I do a multitude of cans and whatever needs a coat of gesso. And I do it in one sitting. It's just faster and easier and less cleanup. So I'm just working my way around. You don't want two big pieces and you're building in those wrinkles and crinkles. Now, you're using a lot of matte medium here, and this does take a significant amount of time to dry, and you're going to want to give it that drying time. I just set it off to the side. I'm doing the 3 buckets kind of in conjunction with each other. So when this is drying, I'm working on one of the other buckets. Now I end up where I end up because it matches my decor. And we'll talk more about that as this evolves. So here I'm just working to cover it up, and then I'm going to set it aside to dry. Make sure that it has a good coat. Now, if you're using Mod Podge, you might find it has a bit of a shiny coverage. It may not work as well with Mod Podge as the fluid matte medium for the technique that we're going with. So now I've got a combination of burnt umber, that's the brown, and black, and I'm rubbing it over the surface. And what this is doing is bringing out the texture. So, like I said, here I was going to create the faux leather look. That was what I thought. That would look really nice, brown, simple, non-seasonal. I could use this on my counter with treats in it. My husband likes his little candies or nuts or trail mix, and I just set it on the counter and fill it with whatever treat is there. So then after the brown, I'm adding some black, and that's just bringing out, again, more of that texture. Now here I'm using brown and black to bring it out. You could use any coordinating color that you like. I'm rubbing it off with a baby wipe. It's a bit of a dance to get the perfect look. Making sure that I go under and I'm getting that black or brown in there. I don't want any white showing up. That's just not going to look particularly good. And I thought this was pretty much where I wanted to do. I was going to do black on the rim. I was unsure what color I wanted to do inside. That's why I left it out. And because, then I decided I'm going to grab my bright aqua and see if I can create kind of a patina look. So I'm just rubbing that over the high points. And you can see how that's bringing out the texture. Then I'm getting in and going with the brown back, going back, knocking back some of it if I get too much. And then I'm rimming it with that, going around the rims with the aqua. And I'm liking this look. I have teal in my house, teal and the dark brown and bronze. So this is going to work really well in my decor. But again, you can use whatever colors you want. And don't worry about it being a brown paper bag, because if you paint it white, it's then white or yellow or whatever color is in your decor. So you could, if you were making this as a gift, you could personalize it to the person's color scheme. But sometimes you're figuring it out as you go. So then I decided I grabbed my copper penny stencil butter, but you could grab any copper paint, and I'm mixing that in, and that really gave me that copper patina look. So I'm just mixing it up. So this evolved. In some ways, this bucket is very simple, but in other ways, it's very elegant. And like I said, it matches my decor, so it really works. And sometimes you don't want just seasonal Christmas, but you could do one for any season using a different napkin, using some of the techniques that I've shown. So there's a lot of texture on this. There's a lot of color and a lot of interest. I'm putting copper around the outside, the rim here. I'm just adding more, adding brown, copper, the aqua, until I get the look that I'm going for. And while I'm doing that, I'm thinking, okay, what color? And I decide that I'm going to do the inside with the copper color. So I did set aside the stencil butter, the copper stencil butter, and I'm using copper paint. And I do give it at least 2 coats, but I don't show that on the film. Because one, you can see, it's very translucent. You can kind of still see the white coming through, and I wanted a deeper, richer copper color. And that pretty much brings us to the end of bucket number 2. I will show how to varnish these at the end, so stay tuned right to the end to see how I finish them up. So bucket number 3, I'm using this colored coffee filter. It just has acrylic paint, leftover paint in it. It doesn't have any stenciling on it or anything, but I'm going to use it. I love collaging, decoupaging with coffee filters. They get kind of that stained glass look. It's an effect that you really can't get on any other papers, and I really like it. So again, like the brown paper, I am just ripping this up and layering it. That's just adding to the variation of this. This is a very quick, easy way of getting color onto this metal bucket. And again, if you know you're going to do this, you can skip that priming, gessoing step. And I am putting it on with my fluid matte medium. I use the Liquitex brand. I just buy it in larger size containers because I find it has a better price point, and then I can minimize how much money. Again, I'm trying to get those straight edges, so the top and bottom, it just makes life easier to fit in, but I'm not worried about the size of this. The more layers you have, the more interest you're going to build into that background. I will link the video where I show how to use paint and create these coffee filter collage papers, because I love, love, love using them. As I said, this one just has some Prussian blue in it, different variations that came out. Sometimes you can stencil on it. But for this background, I wanted something fairly plain. And truth be known, I didn't know at the time of doing this that I was going to be using a napkin on it. I have decided what I'm going to do at this point, and I am applying a coat of white acrylic paint to the already primed gessoed insert. I just want to keep it white, and I think it looks good with the blue background. Ideally, if you know you're going to put the blue on, I would paint this first, and then you don't have to be as careful to not get any blue or any of the white onto the blue. At this stage, I'm using the edges. I'm trying to get the white paint on to trim it with the white paint. I'm thinking that looks good. So this sits like this for actually a day or so because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So then I grab this napkin from NINNYSNAPKINS.com. It's one of the new ones. And oh, look at these adorable Christmas characters. Now, I could decoupage this onto the bucket, but as a whole napkin, but I'm going to harvest those elements. Now, I was showing there, if you cut out one of those elements and take off the excess plies and put it on a dark background, that dark background is going to come through. So I need to do this intermediate step here, and I'm using my iron decoupage sheets. I'll link that video where I show how to make them. And I am going to remove the excess plies. Always remove those excess plies. And then I'm going to use my mini iron and iron it onto these iron-on decoupage sheets. Ironing it on is going to reactivate the glue that's on those sheets and make it very easy for me to cut out these elements and harvest these elements. So if you've got napkins like this one that have these smaller elements, you may want to do this. It makes it very easy to cut out, and it also makes it solid background. So then if you're gluing them onto something, a background that is darker, you're not going to have an issue with the dark coming through. So I'm just putting these elements on here, fitting onto this 8.5 by 11 sheet. And then I'm using my mini iron. This is in the middle setting. You can use your regular iron if you want, just no steam. I'm just ironing it on, getting rid of the wrinkles. And there I have all the elements. Now I could have cut out each of like around the penguin and done each one separately. I decided, I'm going to be a little wasteful on my decoupage sheets and save on time. And then what I need to do is fussy cut. So you could do this, take some of those napkins, iron them on to an iron decoupage sheet, give them a background, and then sit in front of the TV, binge watching your favorite show. So now I am going to glue them on to my little mini bucket. Now these buckets are about 4 inches tall, just FYI. And here I am using gel medium to glue it on. They're a little thicker paper, and I wanted to make sure the gel medium, it's matte finish, just like my fluid medium. It just holds it better for thicker things. So I've just cut out some of the elements, the little gift, the Christmas tree, the penguin, the snowman, the Santa's sack of toys, and I'm just gluing it on. So you can mix and match whatever you want. You can take elements from different napkins if that's what you have. But because my elements are fairly small, there was no problem getting them to lay flat on the round surface. Alternatively, I could have glued them down onto the white without putting the backing on and then painted the background blue. I think this was a whole lot faster and uses those collage papers that I have in my stash. So I'm just mixing and matching, adding trees, and I'm going to have Christmas characters all the way around this bucket. Love, 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 love this. The red that's in that napkin is really striking against that dark blue. So I grabbed this little star snowflake stamp. This is from my wooden alphabet set. And I'm putting white acrylic paint and I'm just pressing it on and making snowflakes against my background. Just applying it wherever I want it. And if it doesn't turn out exactly right, I can grab a baby wipe and wipe it off. Remember, there's texture on there because you have multiple layers of the coffee filter. And there I'm showing how you can just wipe it off if you're not happy. But, no snowflake is the same, so no worries. So I took a napkin, harvested those elements, and came up with my own composition. So this is what you do with a napkin if it doesn't fit exactly. You can cut and piece it together, mix and match with other things. Here I wanted to make that red pop a little bit more, so I grabbed some of my cadmium red. I added a little bit of water, and I'm just deepening the red color on my focal images. I'm loving the contrast of the red, the white, the blue. It just looks so good on the bucket. I know I shouldn't have favorites, but I think this one's my favorite. Which one's your favorite? Which bucket do you like? One with the pink snowman? Two, the bronze patina look? Or three? Here I'm adding Prussian blue and green. I'm actually altering the color of what was in the napkin. I'm making it my own. And this is what you can do. Just giving it a wash of color, green and Prussian blue make a very nice evergreen. If you add a little bit of um, burnt sienna, kind of that orange color, that also looks really good. Here I'm just deepening the blacks. Now I didn't overpaint on the snowman one, but I could have. I just opted to do less on that one. The colors were bright enough, but you could. So if you aren't brave enough to do some overpainting, that's fine. If you want to do it, you can add to it. Like I said, you can do as little or as much. And as I said, these make perfect hostess gifts, craft fair makes. You can fill them with whatever, and I'll talk more about that at the end when I talk about how I varnish these. You can also even put little plants in them. Now, the tray that came with this set of three, I just painted it. I primed it and I painted it the color of my studio and my matte medium and gesso and Mod Podge and some of the things that I grab all the time sit on it. But I find having it on that tray keeps it all contained. Adding a little bit of the white to brighten it up. Just adding, and making this my own. So it doesn't look like I've just glued down a napkin. So here I'm grabbing my stylus as I did with the snowman one, and I'm adding the Christmas balls on here. I could have done this with gold. I think that would have made a nice addition and added a little bit of sparkle to it. And I'm using the fine point of the stylus for the eyes of the Santa, the penguin, the center parts of the eyes. Remember that stylus? This one I got from the Dollar Tree. One side is thicker, one side is thinner, so you can use whichever. Now, I didn't like the white there, and I was really enjoying having the red, so I decided I'm going to do the rims with the red. using a makeup sponge. So this one is a definitely festive setup. You could have a set of 3 of these, make them match, and put marshmallows in and put hot chocolate mix in another one, different things. So now varnishing it, I'm using Polyvine Sparkling Glitter Glaze. And I'm painting it on the outside and the inside of these 2. Now, this sparkle glaze is wonderful. It has this very, very fine silver thing in it. Now, if you can't get that one, there are others. Deco Art has one. Pretty much every brand has some kind of glitter glaze that you can add that little bit of sparkle to. So this goes on cloudy and then it dries clear, leaving that little bit of sparkle. And I hope you can pick up some of the sparkle on here. I'm just applying it with a brush. You can give it 2 coats and that adds more sparkle. I believe I've only put 1 coat. Now I did go on the Polyvine site and I did not know, did not find out whether the sparkle glaze is food safe. But all the other varnishes that are water-based are food safe. So then on the inside, I am giving it a coat. After the sparkle glaze, I'm giving it a coat, the final coat of the Polyvine Decorators varnish. And you'll see that later. But whatever varnish you're using, if you intend to put food and use it for food, you need to make sure that the varnish that you're using is food safe. So 1 is done, and then I'm going to do the same to this one. It just sparkles. Now here is the Polyvine Decorators varnish. Both of these varnishes here, there's heavy duty wood varnish, both of them are food safe. So this bucket, I'm going to be keeping this. So I'm giving it a coat of the Polyvine Decorator varnish. And I'm using it for both the outside and the inside of the container. It again, like you can see, it goes on cloudy, but it dries perfectly clear. You have to do some research, but they did answer me. You can ask the question and they will send you an email and answer you if it's food safe. So here is the finished bucket number 1. Snowman in a line. Love, love, love. Here is the bronze patina. Different, but I'm looking forward to having that on my counter. And here is the Christmas Wonderland. Oh, I love how this one turned out. The red against the blue with the white. Everything came together so nice. So if you want to use this to put treats in, trail mix, chocolates, hot chocolate, here's what I recommend. Even if you use food safe varnish, just take a coffee filter and put it in. It lines it so it keeps it clean. And then at the end, you just pull out the coffee filter. I've done this for a couple seasons with the ones that I've had. Works like a charm. So what can you use these for? Let me know which bucket is your first and what you would fill and put in these buckets. I've given you some close-ups of pictures of this. I hope you give this a try. And remember, if you don't have this size bucket, you can use the same techniques on any mixed media or art journal project. It doesn't have to be a bucket.